All right. As Sabrina shared, we still do have a homelessness crisis. And those are the latest numbers that were identified and counted in January of 2019. This gives you a 10-year graph of our homelessness count trends. You're going to see that it slowly creeps up. And then after Measure H passed, we saw a dip finally in 2018. And as you recall, when this count was released last month, it was a very sobering day because our number had increased by 12%. And I think the community was very confused and very frustrated because I think they began to wonder, we're pouring all these tax dollars, yet the homeless count cannot be tamed, yet it's still increasing. So it is not a good number. However, I think there is a huge story behind this as well. I will share with you that our neighboring counties, in fact, majority of the counties in California, they have experienced an exponential increase in homelessness. Our neighboring counties are 25, 30+% increase. In Northern California, you could imagine their increases are even higher, and there was even a county whose homeless count even doubled. However, I think the important thing is that even though ours increased by 12%, which pales compared to other counties, if you look at the magnitude, the sheer number of homelessness, that every 1% increase in LA County, that could dwarf, a larger increase in different counties as well. But what I want to share with you is that even though our numbers did increase by 12%, if we did not have these robust partnerships with multi-jurisdictions and community partners that's also being fueled by Measure H, I have no doubt that our numbers would have probably skyrocketed beyond 12%. So I think it's really important to remember that we're on the right course. There are certainly opportunities to enhance, strengthen. At the same time, I think we should definitely walk away feeling that we are on the right path. I'm going to skip this since Sabrina covered it. I think this is an interesting slide to share, and it's a little bit of a graphic of what Sabrina shared. As you guys could see, oh, there we go. As Sabrina said, we have over 720,000 rent-burdened LA households. And then what we did is in 2018, over 5,600 people were prevented from entering into homelessness. So that prevention and diversion efforts are working. But when you look at from 2018 count, we had nearly 53,000 people that were counted. But when we look back, we had nearly 55,000 people that we estimated that entered into homelessness. So if we could do the math, the number that were counted was less than the number that we projected that have entered into homelessness past year. What's also important is that we look at these two numbers. We estimate almost 22,000 people were placed in homes as a result of current resources, especially fueled by Measure H. On top of that, over 27,000 other homeless people that exited homelessness and that obtained housing. So if you look at this number, over 48,000 people were helped, right? And you look at 53,000 people that were counted last year. But because of this ongoing, significantly large inflow into homelessness, our homeless count is still nearly at 59,000. Just wanted to share that with you in terms of how that 12% came about. Again, just another snapshot. Nearly a quarter of the people that were counted in January fell into homelessness for the first time. And nearly half of the people who are counted in the LA Continuum of Care, which does not include Pasadena, Long Beach, and Glendale, They were in their first episode of homelessness, so we're not talking about chronic homelessness here, you guys. And more than half of the people experiencing first-time homelessness cited that economic hardship as the leading factor. I'm going to skip through these slides because I went through these with you guys really, I presented this last year, but as you know, the Board of Supervisors launched the Homeless Initiative in August of 2015 due to the increase in homelessness, and also there were some major opportunities such as the Affordable Care Act, as well as multi-jurisdictional efforts to address homelessness. So the Homeless Initiative was launched, shepherded by the County Chief Executive Office, and as a result of numerous community-based discussions and policy summits, in 2016, the board approved 51 homeless initiative strategies, now which includes 21 strategies that's funded by Measure H, and the categories of those strategies are right here, from prevention to subsidized housing to increasing income, case management, permanent housing, and coordination of the existing system. Measure H, really quick, passed March 2017, estimated to generate $355 million annually, and it will sunset in 10 years. It aims to serve 45,000 homeless people to exit homelessness and additional 30,000 homeless people to avert homelessness. So far, since Measure H was passed to as of March 2019, it's a little outdated because we're expecting our next quarterly report to be released next month. So far, we have nearly 16,000 people, homeless people who have been engaged by the outreach teams. And I think this is really important to emphasize that when we say outreach teams, we're really talking about street-based, chronically homeless people who, for various reasons, cannot be placed in housing or resist housing. So it's those 16,000 people, those are probably the hardest to serve, and also who have the highest acuity in their needs that are being served. And nearly 28,500 people entered various housing programs, including crisis housing, bridge housing, interim housing. And then over 14,000 people secured permanent housing through Measure H, which includes rapid rehousing as well as permanent supportive housing and other programs. I'm not sure if you guys had a chance to follow the board meetings in May. On May 14th, the board approved $460 million for this fiscal year's Measure H budget to fund 5 broad categories. And if you guys could see, they really are, it's really a systems that goes from downstream to upstream. $23 million invested in prevention for adults as well as families. Almost $500,000 for street-based outreach. Over $77 million for permanent supportive housing, over $85 million for rapid rehousing. So you could say that combining these 2 boxes, these are our primary sources of permanent housing. And then $126 million for our interim housing, which includes the shelters, bridge housing, recuperative care beds, stabilization, and winter shelter programs. Really briefly, certainly it funds a lot of the programs that were funded last year. There were some system enhancements responding to the board directives as well as the community's advocacy, including increased funding to serve at-risk and homeless families, as well as diversion funds so that we could really help people at the upstream. And then as well as a lot of employment programs, because there's really a strong interest in the community and by the Board of Supervisors to really help our homeless families and individuals to become employable, to achieve some self-sufficiency. As well as showers and safe parking for people experiencing homelessness. You might wonder, well, this is not permanent, why are we doing this? But again, we're really trying to make sure that we're able to invest wisely throughout the system. And as you guys know, we had some infectious diseases and outbreaks, so this also helps to alleviate those concerns as well. And then, of course, to support the implementation of the recommendations set forth by the Ad Hoc Committee on Black People Experiencing Homelessness. And then safe parking as well. I just want to share really briefly in terms of, and this definitely complements what Sabrina shared. What I want to share is that it's a little too small, and I'm having a hard time following this. Oh, here we go. So this first bar is, do they all have a copy of this? Oh, perfect, then I shouldn't be worried. Okay, so the blue bar on the left column is the number of individuals that received services or successfully attained referrals as a result of Measure H funded strategy, which is E6, which is the countywide enhancement of outreach services. From in the first year of Measure H, and keep in mind that it's a lot of ramp up, right? We have $355 million pouring in, yet we don't have the capacity to really be able to spend those money and to provide the services. And key example, as you would know, is how do we hire all these qualified people to start providing these services, right? And even though we made significant progress, still we're struggling to be able to hire the right people to provide these vital services. In 2017-18, nearly 7,000 people were served through street-based outreach. This year, we estimate that almost 10,500 people would have been served, and next year the goal is to serve nearly 13,000. Now, this is for interim housing, including bridge, crisis, as well as recuperative care. Last year, in the first year of Measure H, we estimated over 18,000 people were served. End of previous fiscal year, which just ended, we estimate over 30,000 were served. And then for the upcoming year, we anticipate that, again, similar number will be served in interim housing. This is rapid rehousing. These are the number of individuals who moved into housing. So don't let the little dip in the bar alarm you, because usually when people move into rapid rehousing, we expect them to stay there and to retain their housing. So there has been a steady increase in terms of number of individuals who are moving into more stable housing. And then this is, of course, the permanent supportive housing, newly placed. And I think we know that there's a significant dearth of PSH units. So we are hoping that we could increase the numbers, because at the end of the day, we could do all the outreach, because it's so visible and at our face, right? But if we don't have appropriate housing programs where we could appropriately place these people to have their homes, we are going to be significantly burdened at one end, and they're not going to be able to successfully transition into the housing programs. So we're really trying hard to make sure that we're trying to create the resources and also to work better to really be able to expedite people moving from one stage to another. In terms of next year's planning, as I shared with you, we are looking at a 3-year budget. And of course, as we've done 3 years ago, the 2021 will be recommended, and then the next 2 years will be tentative, right? Because we never know what the budget situation will be. As I've shared with you guys, our annual estimated revenue from Measure H is $355 million. However, the board approved allocation of $460 million. The number doesn't work out right? But in fact, it's actually more. And the reason is because within that $460 million, it not only includes our annual revenue of $355 million, it also includes the underspending of the previous years, because again, the agencies are still ramping up, right? As well as we experienced, knock on wood, even though we hear of the recession, we received a little higher reimbursement from the tax revenues than we anticipated. And that's why the board took a bold position and approved $460 million. Also, on top of this, LASA received state's homeless emergency aid grant, little over $80 million. So on top of 460, there's going to be additional some $40 million that's fueling in for various type of housing as well as access centers as well. And certainly our hope is to be able to maintain that level. And then as part of this 3-year budget planning, there's going to be robust community engagement. So Cheryl, and this is going to be actually different this time around, because when we did this 3 years ago, Measure H was so new, right? And we were in a rush to build a plane as it was flying. But this time around, we're going to really have some opportunity to look at some data and evaluation in terms of, can we predict homelessness of the people so that we could really balance that system as well as to be most cost efficient? And then secondly, how can we better look at what strategies are working better than others, right? And then thirdly, how are these strategies connected to each other where we could directly influence the inflow as well as the outflow? Okay. I think just in your deck of slides, but we also wanted to share with you that we're working with over 40 cities in LA County that developed homelessness plans, and they're also in the process of expanding the supply of housing as well as services. So with that, I'd like to close my presentation. Cheryl, if it's okay with you, we could address some questions.
Okay, great. Well, thank you very much.